There are allegations that the chairman of the Abia State chapter of the All Progressive Congress in Nigeria has been kidnapped. The reports say Chief Donatus Nwangpa was abducted hours before the arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari in the state. This comes against a backdrop of charges that Buhari breached the constitution and is trying to manipulate the judiciary. Nigeria's government has denied suggestions that the suspension of the country's top judge on corruption charges is linked to next month's election. So we talk a little bit more about this with Samson Itodo, who is the Executive Director of IAGA Africa. A very good evening to you, Mr. Itodo, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's just talk about what is happening in Nigeria, in Abuja. You are in Abuja. How widespread are these protests?
Well, good evening once again, and thanks for having me. Well, the protests have been on since the announcement of the suspension by the President of the Chief Justice of the Federation. Today, the National Judicial Council, at its meeting, made a couple of resolutions, and they've given the suspended CJN 7 days to respond to the petition, as well as the acting CJN 7 days to respond to the petition against them. As you know, we are getting ready for the elections, and the environment is quite tense with this declaration by the president. Civil society organizations and the Bar Association are in consensus that this action taken by the president is illegal and the president overreached himself. The Nigerian Bar Association has declared 2 days of boycott of the court in protest of this, and they have resolved to reach out to lawyers in the government of President Muhammadu Buhari to look for ways to lift the suspension, because this suspension cannot stand and it is illegal, and the optics and its implication for the elections are quite grave.
Okay, so let's talk about the legality of the action taken by President Buhari. Government has come out saying that the suspension has absolutely nothing to do with the upcoming elections next month. Do the people in Nigeria buy into this explanation?
I don't think so. First, let's look at the process. The Constitution is very, very clear on how to remove the procedure for removing this Chief Justice of the Federation. And it's very articulated in Section 292 of the Constitution that the CJN cannot be removed without two-thirds majority approving of such a removal in the Senate. And so it's very, very clear. Now, if you look at the process of this particular suspension, you see that it's actually fraught with a lot of illegalities. Now, the CJN, as you know, has been charged to court by the Code of Conduct for some discrepancies in his asset declaration forms. The CJN, in his response, had admitted that he forgot to declare some assets that he had. And now that matter is currently before the CCT, that's the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Now, for us as civil society, we strongly support the fight against corruption, but we believe that, and it's our conviction that you cannot fight corruption without adherence to the rule of law. And so the president suspending the CJN is an aberration of the Constitution. And we are few days to the elections. This sends bad signals to Nigeria and undermine the process. We know that the president is comfortable.
So let me just jump in there, Mr. Itodo, and ask this question. Just how much has it poisoned the atmosphere ahead of the elections? The APC calling it a brazen act of dictatorship. And I mentioned earlier on reports saying that one of their top agents was abducted in Abia State. Are the two connected?
Well, I don't know if they're connected, but what I know for sure is the environment has been charged, is being tensed. The last few days, this issue has dominated discourse on elections. The opposition party had to suspend its campaigns for 2 days, for 72 hours, for 3 days, in protest of this decision taken by the president to suspend the CJN. And so the PDP, which is the leading opposition, is protesting by halting its campaigns. The environment is charged. The international community have also cautioned Nigeria, particularly the ruling APC, to respect the rule of law, because the president overreached himself by suspending the CJN, and it is completely unacceptable. And the call has been, and will continue to be, that the president, to douse every form of tension in this election, he should withdraw this suspension and let the CJN, who has admitted that he didn't declare some assets, recuse himself and let the NJC take the proper procedure, which is currently doing now to address this issue, because we're actually in a constitutional crisis. And this is not good for Nigeria, because the southern part of the country, where the CJN comes from, believe that this is an attempt by the North to marginalize and sabotage this election, because the president actually comes from the northern part of the country. But the opposition party has also insisted that the APC is not committed to credible elections, because the reason why they are undermining the judiciary, it's because they know that they would rig the elections, and when election petitions are submitted to the Election Petitions Tribunal, the judges will do nothing but protect the interests of the ruling government. So they are concerned.
Just a final question, and very briefly, is this a two-horse race between Atiku Abubakar and Muhammadu Buhari, or has all of this tension spread the lot to create greater variety, bigger choices for people?
No. This race is a two-horse race. It's between Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressive Congress, the ruling APC, and Atiku Abubakar of the PDP. It's the two-horse race, and the other candidates have not gained the traction and popularity that they require to actually change the political calculation or configuration as it stands.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights there. That's the Executive Director of IAGA, speaking to us from Abuja, Samson Itodo.